Hello, Saline. This is Talk of the Town, Saline's official podcast. I'm your host, Raine Douglas, and here we are with Miss DeBrincat.
Hi.
Now let's talk local. How did you get into teaching?
Yes. My path to teaching more so actually started with my interest in math more than teaching itself, but quickly went the teaching route. When I got to college, I wasn't 100% certain what I wanted to do. I knew I liked math, and the more math classes I took, the more that was kind of solidified. Especially as they got more challenging, I actually liked them more. That kind of like deeper thinking and struggle that went into all the problems I was doing, it just made me really appreciate math as a subject. And I realized the part about it that I liked so much was more than just doing the math on my own, working with some of my peers in my college classes, or working with some of my friends who might be in math classes that I wasn't in. That process of kind of explaining and working through problems together, hearing about how other people thought about things and making sense of that, learning new ways to do things from other people. That was just really cool and really interesting to me, and all the different ways to think about math and make sense of it I loved. And then I realized that teaching was a great way that I got to do that every single day. But my favorite part about the job is hearing about how students think about them, what questions they ask. Everyday students challenge me to think about things in a different way that I have not before, and I love that. I think it's interesting. I think it's fulfilling. I'm excited to come to work every day because of that reason. So kind of that combination of the math itself, which I think is super interesting and super helpful, and just there's so many things you can do with it. And then the other piece of that, just learning so much about how people think and kind of getting to see those aha moments or work through them together is great.
What kind of degree do you have?
Yeah, I actually did a dual degree program. So I have a degree in education for secondary education with a concentration in mathematics. So essentially a math major, but also teaching certification and all of the classes that go into that process. And then also, just from my own interests, I was super into psychology, a lot of that, the psychology of learning, how people think about things, how people learn. I kind of happened upon a psychology degree. Late in my junior year of college, my counselor just told me I was a couple credits away from getting a whole degree in it. So I ended up in a dual degree program, and I also have a bachelor's in psychology kind of separately, which is super cool, and also I think very, very helpful in the way that I think about and approach teaching. A lot of the stuff I learned in my psych classes has given me a lot of insight into how people best learn and think about things.
Would you recommend that someone who goes into the teaching field would get a degree in psychology?
I wouldn't say it's necessary by any means, but I think for sure if you have room in your college schedule or classes, even if you don't get a whole degree, taking some classes on psychology of whatever age group you're going to be working with, or psychology of learning, I think have been super, super helpful into the way I think about how I structure lessons, how I structure my class, how I interact with students. So by all means, if you have room for that and you're going into teaching, I would highly recommend.
Do you plan on getting a higher degree?
I do think so eventually. I do just love school and I love learning already. I kind of miss not being a student, and it's only been about 6 months since I graduated. Right now I am just focusing on, this is my first year teaching, easing into it, kind of getting a sense of what I like and what I don't like and what I might be interested specifically in getting my master's in. But I do think down the road in a couple years probably I'm definitely going to look into going back to school.
What do you think is the best characteristic in a new teacher?
I think just being understanding, and also kind of alongside with that, understanding and open-minded, both for yourself and for your students. This is the first time that I've ever had to fully take on the entire job of teaching. So I think being understanding for myself about it's okay that didn't go as I maybe wanted it to, where can I improve next time? And then also being understanding towards your students, I think goes a huge way. If they know that you care about them and they know that you care that they do well, I have already seen that that makes them want to do well also. So I think that's just hugely important. And also every day, you guys all come here to school. whether you want to or not, more or less. So as teachers, I think it's really important that we create spaces that you feel safe in, you feel comfortable in. I love that students feel comfortable asking me questions. That's huge. I love that they feel comfortable coming up to me when something is going on and having a conversation about how we can all best help each other. The more understanding you are towards them, the better they'll do, the more they'll learn. And also, I feel like that's reciprocated. They'll be a little bit more understanding towards you. At the end of the day, I'm learning as well as a first-year teacher. So just kind of going in with that mindset, I think creates a good space for all that learning to happen, both on the student's end and a new teacher's perspective.
How was your first day here? Like, what was the highlight of it?
I was very nervous my first day. First day jitters a little bit, but it was honestly went pretty smoothly. It was just nice to have all my students, especially some of the ones that I had during student teaching last year that I was lucky enough to have again this year. Just coming in, saying hi, kind of put some of those nerves at ease, and getting to know all my students. I know like the first couple of days before we jump heavily into the math content, it's always just nice to be able to talk and get to know my students. So despite being nervous, it went well. It kind of made me feel like I was already settling into the place. So it's really nice.
What was something about your first day that you would change to make maybe better or different?
Yes. First day, I did force my students to do some icebreakers.
Oh.
Like most high school students, they didn't necessarily love them. I think moving forward, I do get the chance to start over a new try. I'll be a little bit more intentional. I do think it's important that we get to know each other, but I feel like sometimes those forced icebreakers are not the most comfortable or easy way to do that. Different format, maybe some smaller group situations, maybe an activity that we could just do together would be something that I'm looking forward to next try instead of some more forced stand up and say something about yourself type of things.
Yeah. As a student myself, those are never the most fun.
Yes, I've been forced to do many of those, both as a student in the past and at teacher events, so I understand not always the most comfortable situations for everyone. I know that spotlight, especially on the first day, just like me as a teacher being nervous, I understand students. It's weird. You're in an unfamiliar environment. You're probably around people you don't know super well in their entirety, so something to just be a little bit more comfortable that we're all doing something together.
Is there anything about your teaching career that you would like to just redo entirely, no matter if that may be part of the learning process, your first or second week, or just how the trimester went overall for you?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think there's anything I'd want to completely redo. I think it's important. A lot of what I mentioned, maybe a lesson didn't go exactly as I wanted, or maybe my class structure I would want to change, but I think it's important that I did things the way that I did and I learned from them. I think that's a lot more meaningful and a lot more helpful. It's made me a lot more intentional, especially going into planning a completely new trimester. There's so many more things that I'm thinking about that I don't think I would have thought of if they just went perfectly smoothly the first time around.
Is there something part of your teaching career that you would like to, know something more about, specifically that you wish you had this information before you went into teaching?
One thing that I would love to just know more about in general is technology. I think being a young teacher, a lot of people assume that I know a lot about that. And to some degree, I'm pretty good at figuring things out, but it's just insane how many resources there are for teachers, for students, for classrooms online. I know I've made a couple lessons through Desmos or things like that, but there's so many possibilities, and I think especially now that everyone knows what ChatGPT is and AI, there's just so many things that can be created that, yes, I know that a lot of times the conversations around those are how do we stop students from cheating, but there's also just so many benefits to the amount of technology there is that can actually help learning. I would love to know more about that and how I can actually use it, because right now I don't have a ton of technology in my classroom just because the way that I was taught in school and what's familiar to me doesn't involve that. So kind of as years go on, I would love to kind of learn more about that stuff and figure out what is really helpful and what I can incorporate in a helpful way.
How do you think your students view you and your classroom?
I would hope in a positive way. I will say that I've had conversations with students that do make me feel really good, that they say they like coming to my class, or I've had conversations where students will come in before school and be able to ask me questions. And I just know, like I said, I was a student recently. That was something I really struggled with, asking questions and feeling comfortable with a teacher, not wanting to feel like I was wrong or just didn't know what was going on, is sometimes I know kind of a little bit overwhelming to think about. So just making them feel comfortable is huge to me, and I think that I've gotten some positive response to that. Most of my students are doing really well. I can tell that you guys are intelligent. I can tell by the questions you ask, by the work you do. Not a single one of my students is not capable of math, and so I think it's been going well. I think they think that they're learning. I think they feel comfortable in my room for the most part, all mostly positives.
What teaching experience have you had with a student that really just made you go, wow, this is what I'm going to do just forever?
As a math teacher, you see so many students every day who are like, ugh, math, or oh, I'm just not a math person.
Yeah.
So just seeing students who maybe had that mindset that I'd seen in them earlier on be able to be excited about and talk about math and like demonstrate an understanding, it felt really good, and it was just something that I wanted to keep doing.
Lastly, is there any little thing that a student has done that has just made you think that if you ever had to pick a different career, you don't think you'd be able to?
I had a student come in a couple weeks ago, shout out if she knows who she is. It was actually during my planning. There was actually 2 students, but they came in and they were just talking to me, and she just said, I love the way you explain math because it makes sense. And it was just, we had a whole kind of conversation, and it was great because I was like, it's not me that understands the math, it's you. You're just figuring out that you do. And she's been asking so many questions. She's been asking how she can study for her exam, and it just feels really good to be the person to make students realize that they know how to do it. Because at the end of the day, I'm not imparting my wisdom into their brain and dumping it in there. It is their thinking. It is themselves. But being someone who can kind of help them realize that they can do that just feels really good, and I don't think I would ever want to do anything else because of that.
Lastly, is there anything that you would like to just say about your teaching career or something that you've experienced?
Wow, heavy question. I mean, I guess I just know that, being a teacher is sometimes chaotic. Sometimes I think about the amount of decisions I make every day or questions I answer, things like that. But like I said, it goes a long way. If you're any students listening, if one of your teachers has been really supportive to you or makes you feel really good about coming to class every day, little comments go a long way to reassure them. Just like it feels good. I know, like I said, I was recently a student. When a teacher specifically goes up to you and kind of says they appreciate something you do, being kind and showing appreciation goes a long way. And I do think a lot of the students here at Saline and a lot of the other teachers I work with, a lot of the other staff in general, have been really kind, have been really supportive, and kind of have voiced things like that. So that just goes a long way and has really made me love teaching and want to stay here specifically even.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. DeBrincat.
Yeah.
Check out the other Talk of the Town episodes when they come out. It's on Saline YouTube channel. I'm your host, Raine Douglas.
And I'm Jamie DeBrincat. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.